Good morning, class. My name is Nicholas Carson, and my group will be talking to you guys about interpersonal communication. Within interpersonal communication, there are 10 key components that our group will be covering today, which are, number 1, what is interpersonal communication, 2, forming relationships and proximity, 3, physical attraction, 4, halo and horns effect, 5, social awareness and matching hypothesis, 6, social penetration and self-disclosure, 7, model of interaction theory, 8, imagined trajectories and turning points, 9, relational culture, and 10, relational climate. I'm going to start off the video by talking to you guys about our first topic, which is defining what is interpersonal communication. The book Communication and Age defines interpersonal communication as communication with or between persons who approach one another as individuals in a relationship. This is obviously a broad topic, having many factors, but one of the biggest factors in forming relationships is proximity. Proximity is the distance between two people. Proximity can be as physical as the distance between you and your house, or your work, and your house, or virtual as in mutual friends on Facebook or friends in an online chat. The next topic we'll be discussing is physical attraction. Physical attraction is referred to as the degree to which you would find the bodily characteristics of another person attractive. This is an important factor in the beginning of a relationship because this is usually the first thing people notice when meeting new people. For example, a recent study has shown that the university students are more willing to begin opposite-sex friendships with a person who had an attractive Facebook profile picture. Another example is studies have shown that physical attractiveness to be an important attribute once partners are already involved in an intimate relationship. The next topic I'm going to talk to you guys about is the halo effect. The halo effect is a tendency to overrate the person being observed. This concept can be applied to safety evaluations as well. Here are 7 examples as to why this effect occurs. Number 1, a person's past good performances leads one to expect continued good performance, and the assumption of good performance carries over to future evaluations. Number 2, an evaluator tends to rate a person who is pleasing in personality and character, agreeable and otherwise compatible with the higher than performance may justify. Number 3, recent outstanding behaviors can overshadow much longer periods of lesser quality performance. Number 4, a person with the asset deemed important by the observer, although it may be irrelevant, may receive a higher than justifiable rating. Number 5, a rater may overlook a bad or undesirable trait if she also possesses that trait. Number 6, a person may be judged by his or her potential instead of actual measured performance. Number 7, a person who never complains tend to be evaluated in a positive light. And my next topic I'm going to talk to you guys about is the Ham's effect, or Horns effect, known by other people. The Horns or Ham's effect is the reverse of the halo effect in that evaluations tend to be lower than deserved. And here are several examples of the causes for this effect. Number 1, the evaluator may have high expectations that are not easily met. Number 2, an evaluator tends to give someone who frequently disagrees or appears to be overly argumentative a lower rating. Number 3, a non-conformist is usually rated lower than deserved simply because she is different. Number 4, poor group performance often leads to lower evaluation of all group members, even if one member has an outstanding individual performance. Number 5, people are evaluated the same way as those whose company they keep. Number 6, a recent mistake can overshadow months of good performances. Number 7, an evaluator may associate some character trait with poor performance and give a lower than justified rate to someone who has that trait. And number 8, an evaluator may give a lower than justified rate to a person who performs a task differently than the evaluator would.
Hi, my name is Joshua Wilburn, and I'm going to cover a few topics in this lesson today. To start out with, I'm going to cover the social penetration theory and self-disclosure. The social penetration theory was developed to just show how relationships develop towards intimacy and progress towards that. Self-disclosure is the main component of this act, referring to revealing information about oneself. A good way to think about this theory is to think about layers of an onion and how each layer gets closer and closer to the core. In this theory, when disclosing information, one would start with the superficial layers, which is easy information to disclose. This information is usually tastes in music and like fashion, stuff like that, just simple likes and dislikes. The next layer is called your middle layer, which usually includes social values and political ideas. Usually if you were to reveal some stuff like this in like the first time of meeting someone, things wouldn't go too well. Same goes for the next layer, which is the inner layer. This layer consists of deep fears, life goals, and spiritual values. Now here I need to point out that just because something is listed in this layer, it doesn't mean that it has to be revealed later. Someone could talk about their religion in the first conversation and totally not scare you away, but it just needs to be noted that this theory is no way set in stone. It's a theory. Finally, at the center of this human onion, there is the core. This is your core personality, and only a few people get to really see this in your lifetime. Now, there's another theory about how relationships develop that was presented by Mark Knapp in 2000. We call it the model of interaction stages, and it has 10 stages overall. The first 5 stages showcase a relationship forming. The first step is when 2 people meet, and this is called initiating. From there, if it keeps moving, and it moves on to experimenting, where people often talk about common interests. A lot of relationships will end here because they lack the commonality, but if they pass this, it moves into intensifying, where greater intimacy is developed. This is usually where people start dating, stuff like that. And the next stage is bonding, where a couple could get married or would get married, commonly in culture. And then it's happily ever after, right? Well, in some cases, yes, but don't worry, Naps has got you covered. The next 5 stages are those of separation. The first stage of separation is called differentiating. This is where a couple might start arguing and stop working together as one entity. And the next stage is circumscribing, where communication is lessened because of fear of fighting. Then it moves on to stagnating, where the relationship really has no movement and there is a sense of hopelessness. From this stage moving in a decline stage, there's avoidance, where they literally physically avoid each other and entering each other's space. This is usually like where a wife would like kick the husband out onto the couch. And from here, there's termination, and that's where a lot of relationships will end in divorce. This isn't set in stone still, but this is the way that it's written by Knapp's theory. Now, today with technology, relationships might progress and change quicker and even skip steps in both of the models shown by using hyperpersonal communication. This is a situation where the affection, emotion, and intimacy developed through computer-mediated communication equals or surpasses what might happen in a face-to-face interaction. An example for this would be bloggers on the internet. Presently today, millions of bloggers write and post photos to share their thoughts, feelings, and experiences. But research has, however, demonstrated that in offline face-to-face interactions, individuals do initially exchange superficial information, progressing to more personal and intimate details over time. So, if you're trying to get a date, then go face-to-face. Thank you.
My name is Sahari DeBello, and I'll be talking about imagined trajectories and turning points in relational culture. First, for imagined trajectories, it'd be interpersonal and normative. Basically, the turning point that occurs when you evaluate yourself, your partner, the relationship by studying what is ideal or normal. Basically, an example is, I'm too young to get married, or he's a perfect man. The second thing I'll be talking about is dialect, which refers to direct interaction between you and your partner. Basically, the things that you say, like, I love you, this will never work out. The third thing we're talking about is social network. The turning points when you create like your family, your friends, or the co-workers influence your relationship. Basically, like an example, if your parents disapprove or your friends welcome your partner. Finally, I'll be talking about circumstantial turning points, which are things that are perceived beyond your control, like illness, natural disasters, getting in a car wreck, which basically these can alter your relationship because of these events. Okay. Relational culture. According to women's studies in communication, RTD is close relationship through a focus on central and marginalized discourses, a relational life, and how meaning is constructed from interplay or competing discourses. The first thing is autonomy and connectedness. It's a basic human need, but connection with others is also necessary, which in a relationship, you may feel that you are succeed at one thing, but let's succeed at another thing. RTD explains that the partners must try to create a relationship that satisfies both of these needs at once, which doing this drives the relationship forward. Next, I'll be talking about novelty and predictability, which in a relationship, there has to be excitement, because in a relationship that lacks surprising or excitement can be boring or stale. Finally, I'll be talking about openness and closeness, highlights relationship with the partners on sharing personal information and to have privacy, which having boundaries in a relationship is necessary, but sharing private information can improve your relationship or make it even better.
Good morning, my name is Derek Hawkins, and we're going to be talking about a few topics today, mostly over relative climate. Relative climate defines the overall emotional feeling or temperature of a relationship. You know how Texas weather changes every 30 minutes? Well, that's how relational climate works, in a sense. For example, on some days, a relative culture might have a relative climate that is all sunshine and rainbows, and on another day, it might be tense or cloudy, so to speak. Relative climate can be split into two sections, one positive and one negative, called defensive climate and supportive climate. What's the difference, you might ask? In a defensive climate, if the topic brought up is a touchy subject or offensive, the response you get would be very defensive, most times biased or self-centered. For example, judging others' actions or expressing that only your opinion is the right opinion. A defensive climate is a direct relation to defensive communication. Defensive communication is when you try to protect yourself from something that you find offensive. This creates tension. An alternative to this is a supportive climate. A supportive climate is a less edgy environment. It leaves room for other people's opinions and working together to solve a problem. This is also a great climate to use confirming communication, which is usually messages and communication to make another person's opinion feel useful and valid. A few ways to do this is to acknowledge that person, to respond to them, and to demonstrate support to their ideas. In conclusion, we have learned about what is interpersonal communication, forming relationships in proximity, physical attraction, halo and horns effect, social awareness and matching hypothesis, social penetration theory and self-disclosure, modeling of interaction theory, imagined trajectories and turning points, relational culture, and relational climate. Thank you.